Good morning. Even though my title says it's I'm going to show you how to make a bone broth, it's I want to start with caterpillars. It's I we are feeding our children like they are a very hungry caterpillar on Saturday. It's a lot of muffins and cupcakes and banana breads and processed food and sugary yogurt. It's to name of feeding them, but it's just like the hungry caterpillar. One last thing, they eat the fruit and they get a stomachache, nothing else. So it's caterpillars and children has to have the right diet. It's to make them to grow and become a very healthy um, and happy human being, or a caterpillar in this case. As we said that, let's start our bone broth with how to prep the bones. So we have 4.5 to 5 pounds. It's bones. It's from cow bones. It's organic, free range, and grass fat bones. It's we are taking all the fat and meat out from the bones because meat makes it's stinky, fat makes it's very heavy. Bone broth for is a sipping broth for children to or the grown-ups to enjoy. Our second step to be sure it's we are taking all the uh, bones and fat from the bones, but it's also drying them and putting them in a single layer. Um, I have a smaller pieces, so I'm tugging in. That's totally fat. We are not going to use that. So it's this step is very important to dry them. We don't want to create a steam. Instead of steam, we want it to quick roast. Um, not like roast it's we are going to eat, but it's roast it's to get a little bit color. For the finished product, but it's the main concern. It's here to render the fat. So we are going to take our time and we're going to dry our pieces and make them in a single layer to be sure it's we are not overcrowding and roasting them in a single layer and taking all the fat and um, meat as much as possible from our bones. So it's this project. I also use a chicken feed, which is very hard to find. We eat millions of chickens, and I don't know what happens to their feed. It's very hard. I think it's the first thing it's you have to start doing it. Ask your butcher, ask your uh, grocery store it's to organic chicken feed, then maybe they will start bringing it, because if you are not asking they are not going to bring it. It's no one will try to sell something it's if they have no customer for it. It's we have to show them we have a desire to use it. So it's chicken feed. It's like maybe 2.5 pounds, and we are going to dry them and making them the second layer. They're a lot lighter. They have no fat and they have no meat. It's pretty much it's what you see. It's the skin, nail, joints. It's a lot of joints. So that's going to give our bone broth. It's a little bit more gelatin. So gelatin is very important to repair our skin, repair our intestine liners, and it's everything else between. It's very important. It's gelatin. It's also it's as a skin is skin. We have the skin. We have the meat, we have the bone, we have the nail. So gelatin is it's it's the same as a protein. It's an amino acid, but it's water soluble protein. So it's takes it's like less effort for our body to observe and use immediately. Um, so sometimes it's you see it's the stores it sells gelatin. It's in the package. It's flavored. It's like it's whatever. It's like what is your favorite? Whatever is your favorite. It's like strawberries and oranges, that kind of gelatin, and this gelatin are not the same. As the name mentions, it's that they are desserts. It's they have a lot of sugar. Even the sugar free has something. If it's sweet, it's something. It's there. It's not as a sugar form, but it's like the same breakup, but it's saccharin or something else. It's to give the sweetness taste. And also we know it's the color they use. It's the red or blue. It gives children, it's a behavioral problems because their body has no idea what to do with that. It's a chemical, something. It's chemical. You wouldn't give anything chemical. It's your child, knowing it's, you don't know what is going to happen to their body. And but we are super generously use sports drinks for grown-ups. It's or gelatin. It's because it's dessert and it's because fun to eat. It's we start giving them. So it's when we are looking at this, it's the toe. You see the joints. It's on the legs and fingers. It's like all that. It's actually we have the joints, so we are taking from the animal and bringing that to our body. If you are brittle, if your child falls down and breaks easily, so it's sometimes milk is alone or milk products is the cheese. Yogurt or things like that, ice cream, that kind of things. It's not enough for to repair or rejuvenate our body. So if they are brittle when they fall down, or if you are brittle, if your nail is splitting, or you are um, feeling tired, it's you have a digestive problems, that kind of things, it's you should start drinking bone broth. It's very important. If you are not able to sip using your rice, using your soups, it's stews, it's like all sort of things it's we can use. Eventually I like to build up on bone broth to make what kind of things it's we can do for children to give them it's more in their diet. Its bone broths can be really beneficial if you are dehydrated also. It's like if you have if you feel it's sluggish, you don't want to do anything, you get tired so quickly, it's the some electrolyte unbalance in your body, just putting a little bit unrefined salt with bone broth, drinking that, it's also brings its back all the goodness back to your body. um, Also, bone broth can be really useful. It's our intestine liners. It's actually it's rejuvenates itself every 4 days. So it's builds up. It's our inside our body. It's let's talk a little bit more about our inside our insight. So it's till age 30 we are building up our bones and we are growing. After age 30 we start losing our bone mass. It's 1% every year. With menopause, it's age 50 and over. We lose our bone structure. It's a lot faster. So we see that its um, bones are not there anymore. It's especially it's when we get older. It will be hard to get up, go. It's that's the part of the aging because our joints. It's just we lose our joints. It's the cushionness. It's gone. So gelatin helps that. Even though I said it's like a little bit gelatin, its skin has a lot of gelatin. That's what we are trying to take with from our bones. We have to be really focused on that. So let's talk about if you cannot find chicken feet for your from your butcher or your town, it's like they don't have any. So you can use a backbones, neck bones, it's wings, that kind of bone parts. It's very cheap from your butcher. You can buy that. You can use that. Also, you can use a already roasted chicken bones. It's like you have that. It's you can just pile up in your freezer and wait till you have plenty. The only thing I will concern about that, it's actually it might have some black pepper, which long cooking time it makes the black pepper is bitter. And then the other thing, it might be adding a extra salt on your bone broth. So you have to be careful. It's the end result. It might be a little saltier than you expected. Have to be careful. This bone broth has no salt on it. We don't add salt because the children, it's toddlers. It's actually especially young children will have collected too much salt in their kidney. Build up salt, it actually creates a kidney stone for the young children. The other thing we see in Bay Area here, it's the oxtail, which is actually it's cow tail. Um, that can be really nice, good if you find it's really good. It's try to get the smaller pieces with as little as meat and fat on it. So I took my time and I go back to the pieces. I missed the fat and the meat. We're gonna clean all that it's carefully, and as much as possible we're gonna take it off. So our next step is roasting. It's we are going to roast in a dry pan. It's we didn't put any oil. It's 375 to 400-degree oven. It depends on it's how hot is your oven. We did it's 20 minutes roasting, and then we bring it out and turn it around. It's I'm trying to show you the colors. It's not really a lot of color there. This is a very gentle roasting. If it's your oven is too hot, turn it down. It's like 350, 375. We are trying to not to burn the bones. It's burnt food is not good for anyone. The burnt food is not good for children and toddlers. It's we don't want to give them it's burnt food. Burnt food it's we know studies shows it's cancerogen for human body. So here's our bones. They are not really super colorful. It's not real roasting. It's we are going to eat. We are not trying to cook. We are just trying to render the fat. I'm going to move my bones to the Instant Pot. When it's still hot, we don't want it to fat to cool down on it. Here's the fat it's we render in the first step. It's we are going to do two steps. It's to take as much as fat possible. Um, so we're going to leave that fat out and let it our bones to cool down. After they cool down, we're going to add to water, and also it's a fourth of a cup vinegar. Vinegar is going to break down it's the tissue, and it's just make it its calcium. It's more available for our bone broth. We're going to let it sit for 1.5 hours. After it's cooled down, we put the water. That's very important step. And then we are letting it sit for 1.5 hours to 2 hours, whatever. This is not you're gonna wait on the top of it. It's just go do something else. So when I start my pressure cooker, we can do two ways pressure cooker. It's you can do in a pressure cooker for 1.5 hours, or in this case, I did for in a slow cooker for I think it's 12 hours. I started it's the day night before, and then I in the morning I have the bone broth. It's coming out. Looks fantastic, isn't it? We didn't roast for a long time, but still it's a great color. Um, as you might think, this is ready. I'm going to sip. It's not ready to sip yet because it has a lot of fat. Unless you're a ramen shop, will use this as it is because that's why their broth is super delicious. They leave the fat on it. So for children, we cannot leave the too much fat for them to drink or use in their meals. It's fatty liver is not for grown-ups. It's drinking a lot of alcohol. Fatty liver is actually it happens. It's if we have a lot of animal fat in our diet in our protein. So we are trying to take the fat off. It's which we are going to remove the bones and then go through the sifter. When it's time to put it away, you can do it's couple things, of course. It's always we have an option when we have this much broth in our hand. It's you can put them in a small mason jars and separate the fat to protect the broth, and you can keep it in the refrigerator for using that way, and move the fat before because it is like a top. It's you can remove that fat and have the broth ready for you, or you can let it cool down in a big container and make it's like the whole big giant blob of fat, and then you can move that fat and then put it in a smaller containers or smaller jars or smaller plastic containers. Because it's so hot, you cannot put in a plastic in the first place. So we know that we cannot put hot stuff in a plastic containers. So let's remove this very carefully. Be sure it's no kids around running around, and you are doing a good job because it's very hot. You don't want to splash on your body to get burned. It's so it's we are moving that, and we're gonna save the bones and do one more time. It's in a slow cook. It's 12 to 18 hours, depends on how much time you have in your hand. It's this point if you use a pressure cooker 1.5 hours, if you cannot get really a lot of goodness out of it. We cool it our bones. and then we will put a good water to be sure you are using a good water. I have well water here. I cannot always use my well water for this quality. It's I give to my friends. I always use a spring water for even though I have a drinking water in my well. So we will do exactly the same thing. It's we will put a water and then it's we will put our vinegar again and let it sit for 1.5 hours, 2 hours, and then we will start our slow cooker for 12 to 18 hours. When our seconds are cooking on the slow cooker, it's here's our first batch with tons of fat on it. So we will remove that fat and we will not use that fat. Uh, for serving, it's let's talk about heating a little bit because it's we have all microwaves and we want to have a really easy life. I've seen people even heat their children's bagels in the microwave. So microwaves, it's the waves actually it's breaks the protein. So we don't want to heat our sipping broth in the microwave. We don't want to heat anything in the microwave, but let's say it's this is very specific something it's we are trying to accomplish with this. So it's if you are giving this broth to your friends and relatives or someone is in your neighborhood, it's had a surgery or something, you are being nice to them, be sure it's that you are telling them it's actually it's this cannot be heat in the microwave because it's when we break the amino acids it has no use for our body. Our body is not able to use, maybe it will use it just as a liquid, but it's not really like building block for our bones and and it's inside our body or skin. So it's after our bone broth is cooled down, we can put them, separate them in a freezer containers, which I have in front of me. It's a different sizes I have, and then you can write on them. It's this is the sipping broth. It's a lot more gelatinous in it, and then it's the seconds you can write it seconds for soups or stews or something. It's like makes it is the difference because when they are all frozen it's they look all the same, especially if you are using like me it's the same kind of containers. It's very hard to differentiate them. Before I finish this section, I want to show you some couple other bone broths I made in the previous times. It's not always bone broths comes out as perfectly gelatinous gelatin in it. It's like really thick and it's still yummy and delicious. It has gelatin, calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, all that stuff. But it's sometimes if we use like backbones, it doesn't have a lot of skin, but it still has a lot of joints. It's sometimes we use it's already roasted bones. It's like it's from leftover from something else. You saved it your pork bones. It's you save your beef bones. It's all it comes out. It's in a different form, but it's nutritionally very rich. It's going to repair your intestines. It's going to help you your red blood cells, and it's like inside your body, and it's going to give your skin a um, beautiful glow. It's going to still make your brain it's like no sluggishness in the morning. Well, when you wake up, it's in the morning and you feel like literally it's a little stupider than the other days. It's like your brain is not working. It's you're foggy and you are trying to figure it out why it is. It's our brain, 70% it's of it, it's actually it's water. So when we are lack of water, especially nutritionally rich water like this bone broth, it's we are getting sluggish and stupid. So it's whatever you do, it's don't get discouraged. It's like first time when you try this recipe, it's the outcome is not exactly mine. I'm just trying to show you its outcome. It's always different. Its bone structure, it's not the different, but it's the amount of the bone, amount of the water, amount of the cooking time, amount of the skin in your bones, or it's the how you cook. It's like if you cook in a pressure setting, it's going to be a lot shorter time. If you forget to put a vinegar in it, it's going to be different. Its vinegar helps breaks the calcium and the minerals in our bones. It's very important to use vinegar. Uh, so try not to skip the steps. It's wading in the cold water with vinegar and taking the fat off a couple times, right? It's we're gonna roast first and then it's leave some fat behind and then we're gonna let it cool down and then take the fat off. So pat yourself on the shoulder. You did really great job. It's the outcome is gonna be everywhere and each time it's gonna be different, just like me as doing this for more than 15 years. So enjoy.